Well, Mr. Speaker, I regret to stand yet again to declare that the Speaker is a partisan Liberal. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't stand here to say that as a critique or a criticism. While I might do that in a different setting, today I bring that up to say that those are the facts. The fact is that the Speaker has a very, very, very long history of partisan Liberal political activity. As a young person, the president, the Speaker was the president of Young Liberals. He took an activist role in that position, building Liberal organizations and connecting with Liberals from coast to coast. I, too, was involved in young Conservative politics, and so I know a little bit about what's involved there. I can tell you that nobody gets involved in youth politics because they are a nonpartisan. It is a very partisan environment. He went on to be a staff member for several Liberal cabinet ministers, and as a matter of fact, he was so well known within Liberal politics that Stéphane Dion appointed him to be the national director of the Liberal Party. Now, he went on after being elected, he took on what is to be probably the most partisan positions in the House of Commons, which is becoming the pit bull to defend the Prime Minister as the Prime Minister's parliamentary secretary. I say all of that simply to give a context to why there was many in this House that were concerned or had reservations about electing the member to become the Speaker of the House of Commons. It was evident that the person who is now, the member who is now the Speaker, had a very, very partisan history, and he did it very, very well. As a matter of fact, oftentimes he would disrupt committees and agitate processes and procedures to try to defend the Prime Minister, especially when the Prime Minister was coming under the scrutiny of the litany of scandals that he has now found himself in. Now, the Speaker of the House of Commons takes a very important role in the House of Commons, and yes, it is always going to be, or for the most part throughout our entire history, it has been a person who's elected from amongst us. And all of us get here because of partisan activities. We campaigned against other parties or other individuals within our local communities, and we eventually get elected to this place. And so it isn't, people that are looking to become the Speaker aren't here through a different mechanism than the rest of us. But usually the Speaker has a history of working well with other parties and with other members of the House.
And being in a nonpartisan
That is not the case for the member from Hull Almer.
Yeah,
as a matter of fact,
chair of a committee,
he has aggressively defended the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office over the procedures and the rights and the privileges of members in this House. To give some level of context and contrast, Madam Speaker, I'd like to draw to your attention a little bit of recent history. When the House of Commons, through its committees, had requested, in many ways, in different ways, information about the documents that had not been forthcoming regarding the firing of lab scientists from the Winnipeg lab, the then Speaker, the predecessor to the current Speaker,
Anthony Rowe,
actually, who was elected as a Liberal member of Parliament, went so far as to sue the government, the Liberal government, to defend the decision of members of this House of Commons.
I actually liked Anthony Rowe.
Because the Speaker serves as the servant of the decisions of the House of Commons that are there to execute the will and the decisions of the collective House of Commons.
It's so unfortunate.
And so I'm sure that
he had
the
to
former
resign.
Speaker was uncomfortable with launching a lawsuit against his own party's government.
Yeah, Rhoda did
but
that.
He did it.
He did it, yeah.
Because that was the role of the Speaker. Now, to contrast that and to, I guess, draw to members' attention to comments made by the now Speaker, in November 16th of 2020, I was serving as the chair of the Ethics Committee. And the committee was reviewing the unbelievable revelations that had started to flow out of the allegations of huge amounts of money being given to the Prime Minister's friends during the COVID payouts, specifically with regards to up to $1 billion that had been committed to the We organization. And the Ethics Committee began a process of looking into that organization and discovered in due course that organization, previous to getting the commitment of nearly $1 billion, had given significant amounts of money to the Prime Minister's family. It was in these discoveries that the committee was looking for more information from the government, but the government was not forthcoming with that documentation. And so the members of that committee, including members of the Conservative Party, members of the Bloc Québécois, members of the NDP, came together and constructed a motion that was being debated at the committee, and the Liberals, through a filibuster, were refusing to allow that motion to ever get to a vote, so that there would be a requirement by the government to produce documentation that would either prove or disprove information about money that was given to the Prime Minister's family members from the We organization that later was got a commitment of nearly $1 billion. And I'll just quote, in a lengthy intervention in that committee, the member from Hull Almer, who is now the Speaker, who was leading the charge on behalf of Liberals, said in that committee meeting, and I'm quoting, "If this motion ends up passing as the opposition holds the majority on that committee, its validity will be immediately questioned, and there will be serious questions about the ability to enforce it." And then he went on, Madam Chair, to say, "Mr. Chair, this is very important." So he didn't slip up. He's now saying, and I'm quoting, "Mr. Chair, this is very important. Let me repeat. If this motion ends up passing, as the opposition holds the majority at this committee, its validity will be immediately questioned, and there will be serious questions about its ability to be enforced," end quote. Madam Speaker, it is not wrong for a member of Parliament to get elected and defend its government with all of their ability. I hope to have the privilege to do that. What is inappropriate is for somebody who serves as the Speaker to continue in that conduct. And that is the part that seems confusing to the Speaker. As a matter of fact, when he ran to be the Speaker, he did acknowledge that he had many partisan positions, played partisan games, and said that he wanted to be judged by his conduct going forward.
That's right.
He asked for us to trust him. And he said that effectively the proof would be in the pudding. Well, Madam Speaker, we've got some facts that we should go through then. I can tell you that the other thing he said was that the Speaker should be a referee and not a participant in the game. And I can tell you that he has had more headlines for his misconduct since he has been in the position of a speaker than the vast majority of members of parliament in this House. We had other reservations about the fact that he had been found guilty by the ethics commissioner for breach of rules with regards to ethical behavior, but those were secondary to what we believe needed to be a nonpartisan behavior of any Speaker of the House of Commons. But unfortunately, the revelation of partisan activity has been, well, it's been historic. This is the type of history nobody should ever want to make, but it really has been historic. I don't think there's ever been a Canadian Speaker who has been alleged and then to have been found guilty of so many partisan involvements while they were in the Speaker's chair. And just going through just a few of them, the list has now grown to such a length that it would take me for much longer than my speech will allow to go through them all. But it was discovered that in last October, he called up a former member of parliament who's now an opinion writer and asked the opinion writer to write an op-ed slamming the official opposition for its efforts to hold the government to account. Next, in November, it was discovered that he had attended and spoke at a Liberal event for his provincial Pontiac Liberal Association, his provincial counterparts, where they were soliciting support from the community for the upcoming election, and obviously they were looking for financial support. In December, this is when it all kind of broke loose and became national news, when the Speaker undertook to videotape a partisan video tribute that was broadcast at the Ontario Liberal Party's leadership convention. Now, the tribute was to the outgoing interim leader of the Liberal Party, but this is wrong on so many levels. It was at a Liberal Party convention where they were obviously soliciting support for the next general election, but the tribute was specific to an individual who, yes, was leaving an interim position, but who would be seeking re-election. This wasn't as if it was some tribute, but far worse, Madam Speaker, than just paying tribute as a nonpartisan speaker to a Liberal candidate. The Speaker did the recording in his full Speaker's robe, in his Speaker's office. You would think that somebody somewhere would have raised some alarm bells, and Madam Speaker, it gets worse. Because his defense, when it was all made public, he said, "I didn't think anybody was going to find out about it." That was his defense. He says, "I didn't know that it was going to be put on the big screen. I thought I could get away without anybody knowing about it." And that was his defense. And then the Liberal Party, again, Liberal Party coming to his defense, said, yes, in fact, we weren't clear to him that we were going to expose it to the public. So all of them in agreement believes that it would have been all right if it just wouldn't have become public. That in and of itself is a massive question of conduct and of character. And then, of course, in the fallout, just the days that followed the fallout of that scandalous video, and in the midst of a sitting week, now it's rare, if ever, that a speaker would jet off in the middle of a sitting week. Well, this speaker did. He went down to Washington. And of course, we would have imagined that he was going down there for some very important high-level meeting that obviously would have required that he leave Parliament during a sitting week in the weeks that followed the scandalous video. But then we found out that he actually went there to pay tribute to a good Liberal that he got to know while he was well, he was the president of the Young Liberals. Another tribute to a Liberal while he was traveling on the Speaker's budget. And then, of course, we have the revelations now of this summertime evening with the Honourable, and then the name of the Speaker in his name. And of course, it's now been circulated, the details of the event. Now, these details of the event are interesting. They're very, very partisan. They attack the official opposition. They attack the leader of the official opposition. They are actually, I had now the opportunity to actually go through other invites that were posted to the same website, the Liberal Party of Canada's website, about events in local communities. They are by far, Madam Speaker, the most partisan descriptor of any event that is posted on that entire website, are attributed to the Speaker of the House of Commons. And then, of course, we have the cover-up. So it's all fine because now the Liberal Party of Canada, obviously a disinterested and independent body, has come racing to the Speaker's defense saying, no, he didn't know that it was going to be posted there. He didn't know it was going to be there. So it's okay, like we'll take full responsibility. It was us who did it. This is a template that we use for all kinds of events on the website. Well, Madam Speaker, I went through all the events. There's only one other event that has that same text. Only one. And it was posted in the midst of this scandal. So it's not like it was there for a long period of time. Just recently posted one other event that has the same descriptor. This is not a boilerplate template. Madam Speaker, this is another effort by the Liberal Party. But the interesting part is, if you look at the fine print at the bottom of the website, it says team and then the Prime Minister's real name, team of Prime Minister events are posted by local volunteer teams. And then there's a learn more button. And then to submit a ticketed event, another button to go here. Madam Speaker, my party doesn't know when I hold a local event unless I tell them. My local association, which is very effective at doing good work of raising money and political support in my community, they do it very effectively. The Conservative Party of Canada doesn't organize these things. It's local events by local volunteers and other folks. The interesting part is the former PMO staff member and former president of the Hull-Almer Liberal Association now serves as the Speaker's Chief of Staff. It doesn't seem to me that you would appoint that individual because he was really well versed in parliamentary procedure. It is clear as to what his credentials were. But I say all this to say that he knows how the system works. Nothing gets fed up to the party without somebody at the local level sending it there. And this event was clearly a decision of the local folks. And I can tell you that any member of parliament that is in this place where they're expected to show up at the event doesn't have these events planned without their knowledge. And so you have the Speaker who knew about the event. You have a Chief of Staff who's very politically astute, who's been engaged at the local association level, now serving as the Chief of Staff to the Speaker. Madam Speaker, nothing checks out about these revelations and the now new explanation that the Speaker has made. Madam Speaker, this Speaker has demonstrated countless times that he's unfit to be a nonpartisan Speaker. He's a very, very effective partisan Liberal, and Madam Speaker, we've lost trust in his ability to govern this place.
That's a great
Questions
speech.
and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader. Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, it's interesting in regards to hearing the Conservatives, not once, not twice, but not even 3 times. They have constantly, Madam Speaker, had it in for the Speaker. They really have. You know, I wasn't here on the day of the election of the Speaker because I was in a provincial election working on my daughter's campaign at that point, so I couldn't be here. But in coming back, I heard comments in regards to the Conservatives' shock and surprise to the fact that the Speaker actually had won. From day one, they've actually not supported the Speaker, and I find that unfortunate. I won't ask the reasons as to why, but yeah, and the member says he'll tell me why. But maybe he can expand on his heckle he just said. My question to the member is, do tell me why, as he heckled.
Member for Grande Prairie Mackenzie.
Sure, he'll happily do it.
Madam Speaker, the majority of my speaking time was explaining why. The evidence that had mounted even before the Speaker had taken the Speaker's chair. It is not a crime for somebody to get elected who has a very robust partisan political history. There's many of us that do. The issue is that the Speaker has continued his aggressive partisan behavior throughout his time in this House of Commons, and everybody knows about it. I read testimony of where the Speaker, the now Speaker, said that even if a parliamentary committee passed a request for information, he would disregard it. Their government would disregard it. He didn't defend the interest of Parliament. He didn't defend the procedures and the policies of transparency that ensure that Canadians get the information that their elected officials request in this place. He said he would ensure that it never saw the light of day. And this is direct contrast to his predecessor, who I'm sure reluctantly sued his own party's government to get information that had been requested by this House. It was clearly evident that this Speaker would always put the Liberal Party ahead of Canadians and ahead of this Parliament every single time. And that's why we didn't vote for him.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Brantford. Brian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague for that excellent speech and the grounds for which we seek the removal of the Speaker of the House. Can my colleague expand and provide some examples of the partisanship displayed by the Speaker of the House in terms of how he manages proceedings in the House itself?
Honourable member for Grande Prairie Mackenzie.
Well, there's been many times, and of course, look, I've played a number of sports, and from time to time you get frustrated with the referee. Been there, done that. You know, sometimes when the call comes to your favor, you're happy, and when it doesn't, then of course you claim that they're favoring the other side. But this Speaker, I believe, has done it consistently in this House, where he'll hear one thing on this side of the House and not hear it on the other side. And quite frankly, Madam Speaker, you know, folks can, you know, they can decide for themselves. But the national media was seized with an episode of the demonstration of what I believe I've just described, when the Prime Minister used language that some would consider inappropriate. The Speaker asked for him to withdraw it. The Prime Minister didn't. He changed it up a little bit and moved on. When the Leader of the Official Opposition, in the same question period, did almost exactly identically the same thing. As a matter of fact, stood several times to say that he would replace the word with an alternative word that had been used, which the Prime Minister had just done, where the Prime Minister had just replaced the word. The Leader of the Official Opposition requested several times to do the exact same thing. The Speaker had a different ruling for the Leader of the Official Opposition opposed to the Prime Minister. Clearly, a partisan interpretation. He was clearly partisan in his rulings that day, and the media all saw it.